It's 2:07 on the John Phillips Show, Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, we have some more upsetting news about our senior senator in the state of California, Dianne Feinstein. Catherine Feinstein, Dianne Feinstein's daughter, who has limited Dianne Feinstein's power of attorney, is alleging that her mother is the victim of financial elder abuse.
I would assume the elder abuse is being performed by Dick Blum's trust.
Yes, Dick Blum's trust, which is her husband who passed away, I think, last year. The trust is in charge of his kids, who are limiting the things that they'll pay for, including her medical treatments. And now Catherine Feinstein is alleging the trustees are victimizing Dianne Feinstein. The trustees are alleging Catherine's the one victimizing Dianne Feinstein.
Poor Dianne. The woman's 90 years old. She served as a supervisor in San Francisco, a mayor in San Francisco, took over, by the way, after an assassination, was the first female nominee, major party nominee for governor, and then has served in the United States Senate since 1992. And now everyone's acting as if she's already dead, and the ghouls around her are using her as a pawn to get whatever it is that they want.
It is getting really, really ugly. And usually you don't witness how ugly these things get because you're already 6 feet under. This sucks for Di-Fi.
If I'm Dianne Feinstein and Dick Blum's kids are anywhere near me, I'd have a food taster.
Did she actually fall down the stairs last time she was in San Francisco? Or one of those kids laying in wait?
I don't know. Did you ever hear the story of Leland Stanford's wife?
Oh, what's this one?
Okay, so Leland Stanford, of course, he is the man that founded Southern Pacific Railroad. And he also founded Stanford University, was a governor of California, U.S. Senator from California. When he died, his wife outlived him for a long time. And it was a situation like Feinstein, where the university had certain ideas as to what they wanted to do. She had different ideas. I believe she was chairman of the board. And she just became the shrew that was in the way. And they tried to poison her once at her home in San Francisco, and she somehow survived the poisoning. And she got freaked out. She knew people were trying to kill her. So she went on vacation to Hawaii, and then she got poisoned and died at a hotel room in Honolulu.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I guess they never really found out who poisoned her. They just chalked it up to, I guess, bad food. And she was dead, and the people who were battling with her for control over the university won because she was no longer around to push back, and suddenly they got everything they wanted.
Funny how that works out.
So you have Dick Blum's kids who wishes she would drop dead, so they get all the money, because apparently Dick wasn't anywhere as rich as people thought he was, because he dumped all of his money into hotel stock right before COVID. And so now they don't want to have to share the money. I'm sure Catherine Feinstein, Dianne Feinstein's biological daughter, she wants her cut of the money, but she's not going to get it if Dick's kids are the ones calling the shots. Nancy Pelosi wants Dianne Feinstein to stick around as long as possible so Gavin Newsom doesn't appoint a black woman to fill that seat because she wants it to go to Adam Schiff. And because her daughter, Pelosi's daughter, is now the primary caretaker of Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi essentially controls that U.S. Senate seat until Feinstein leaves office.
Every aspect of this is just such an ugly end-of-life story.
No one will remember anything about Dianne Feinstein's life outside of this. This is going to be the one takeaway that people have. All right. It's our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a former member of the California Senate and president of the Golden State Policy Council. You can get her online at goldenstatepolicy.com and follow her on Twitter at Senator Melendez. Senator Melissa Melendez, welcome.
Well, John, thank you for having me on. That was a very sad chronology that you gave of Senator Feinstein's life. I will say that. Funny what money makes people do, huh?
Oh, money and power, because power is a key part of this, because everyone wants their hands on that U.S. Senate seat. And for some people, it benefits them for Feinstein to stay alive and serve in that seat in whatever state she's in. And for other people, it benefits them if she drops dead yesterday. And they're not particularly shy about letting you know where they stand.
Yeah, that's true. And meanwhile, we are talking about a human being here. Dianne Feinstein was the less champion for so very long, and now all of a sudden she's been reduced to, I guess, whatever amount of money she can dole out to surviving children. That's pretty sad.
It really is. I'll tell you what else is sad. All of the smash and grabs that we've seen in Southern California recently, including at the Americana in Glendale. We saw another one in the San Fernando Valley at a Nordstrom's this weekend. $300,000 worth of merchandise was stolen in each of these smash and grabs. The cops are saying this is part of an organized crime ring where they go in, they steal all the merchandise, and then they sell it illegally online. I would imagine most of the people who are buying the items have no clue the items are stolen. They're just buying a scarf on eBay or whatever the case may be. Gascon is more concerned about going after the people who are buying the stolen items online, who, again, probably don't even know that they're participating in a crime. And he's not that interested in going after the people who are the ones conducting these smash and grabs. What's been real interesting to me is the response that we've seen from politicians after this story was reported. And they all seem to be on the same page. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about Karen Bass, if you're talking about Gavin Newsom, George Gascon, or whoever. They're not saying they want these people to go to prison. They're not saying they want these people to go to jail. They're not saying they're for law and order. They're saying they want, quote, accountability. Because accountability doesn't mean jail time. Accountability doesn't mean a criminal record. Accountability doesn't mean having to disclose that you're a felon on job applications. Accountability to them in a no-bail state means we arrest you, we immediately release you after you're processed, and then we put you in some kind of group therapy so you can go out and commit another crime.
Well, I don't even know if they go that far. I mean, they're not going into any group therapy. They're just being released. It's the revolving door. I mean, we've known this since the passage of Prop 47. A year after it passed, they saw the crime stats going up, and they have consistently gone up. I mean, just look at Oakland. My gosh, their robberies are up, I think, 41%. Similar stats in Los Angeles. This is not by accident. And remember, the whole plan behind Prop 47 that voters passed, that, we can talk for an hour about how it was sold to the voters, but they passed it. And the whole point was, no, look, we're going to save money because we're going to be incarcerating fewer people, which means we'll be spending less on, inmate costs. And then that money that we save, well, all that's going to go into mental health programs and substance abuse programs, which is a bunch of baloney because that didn't happen and it's not going to happen. And, oh, by the way, they also said, well, you can't, like in the past, essentially force someone to go into a substance abuse program because they took that off the table. It used to be, you had a couple of choices. A judge could say, okay, John, look, either you go to some sort of substance abuse program and get this under control because we don't think you're a career criminal, but we think you make bad choices because of your addiction, or you can go to jail. Which do you choose? And those who aren't the career criminals, and maybe some who were, said, okay, I'll take the substance abuse and try to get their life on track. Well, they took that off the table. So I'm not sure why Karen Bass or London Breed or anyone else is so surprised at what's going on with crime these days, because they're the ones that created the plan.
When you're in Sacramento, let's say you're at the cafeteria at the Capitol, or you're at Frank Fat's getting a drink after the session is over, and there's a television on in the background, and they're showing the video footage of these smash and grabs at these malls, and you're seated next to one of your Democratic colleagues who voted for Prop 47 and 57 and all of the policies that led to this. What do they say to you as you're looking at this B-roll in the background of these smash and grabs?
Well, John, really it comes down to systemic racism, okay? And the sooner you learn that, the better. I mean, that's really what this is all about. If we didn't have such widespread systemic racism in California, then people wouldn't have to steal and people wouldn't have to commit these crimes. And it's really, that's what it comes down to. I mean, it's the most nonsensical, explanation of what is taking place, but that's what it comes down to every single time. Or they think that, it's an isolated incident. It's, the media is making this out to be more than what it really is. They're sensationalizing it. And I just, there's no talking to them. I mean, they just won't see it for what it is.
And are the worst of them the ones that get put on the public safety committees?
Oh, yes. So listen, the Public Safety Committee members are chosen very carefully, and these are the people who are the most extreme in their views when it comes to law enforcement and crime and punishment. I have seen Democrat members be placed on that committee sometimes as punishment, but most of the time they put them on there because they know exactly how they're going to vote. And these are the people who are, anti-law enforcement, who are all about the woes of our society, can all be boiled down to systemic racism. I mean, it is a very clear strategy when they select who's on the Public Safety Committee. And I saw a Democrat member, they kicked her out the Public Safety Committee because she, after a couple of hearings, she wasn't voting the way they wanted her to. And so they dumped her and put someone else on there.
We're speaking with Senator Melissa Melendez, who you can follow on Twitter at Senator Melendez. Senator Melendez, you tweeted out the following a little bit earlier, I guess it was last night. California is preparing to pass a bill, AB 1028, that removes the requirement for healthcare providers to report to law enforcement injuries caused by domestic violence or sexual abuse. This is good news for abusers, terrible news for the abused. California has been moving in the direction of protecting the victims of domestic violence for a very long time, because you know that if you're dating someone or married to someone who's physically abusing you or sexually abusing you, and it's obvious to everyone in the room, the doctors, the nurses, the police officers, whoever, but you don't want to get beat again by being the source of the story as to just exactly what happened, they have to report it so that way the blame doesn't get placed on the victim, and that way the abuser doesn't come after the victim a second time around, or a third or a fourth or a fifth time around. Now that they want to change this law, they want to make it so that the victims of domestic violence are the ones in the crosshairs. Am I reading this correctly?
No, that's correct. They essentially want to gut the mandated reporter status in California, and with the exception of if the injury was sustained with the use of a firearm. That's not allowed. But if you use a knife or a baseball bat or, something else, well, then that's different. And their argument is that women typically aren't going to go seek medical treatment because they don't want law enforcement to be called, because then that will just cause them more problems. And I can certainly understand that. However, what also happens is you never have the opportunity to get that young woman out of the dangerous situation that she's in. Because if someone is abusing you in that way, they're not just probably going to do it once. I mean, it's going to be a pattern. So is the guy you're with going to be angry? Yep, probably. But it sounds, it kind of has an anger issue already. And if they can't remove you from that situation, try to help you, then, the next time that I guess, law enforcement is called may be to ask the coroner to come along with them.
Assuming this doesn't happen in L.A. County, where I don't think they'd do anything about it if they knew about it, but let's say in Orange County or Riverside County, you're the victim of domestic violence or some kind of sexual abuse. You go to a doctor because the injuries are enough that make you seek medical attention. Now, the abuser is going to know who was the one that talked to the cops. They know who to go after when they're looking for retribution. It's not like you have to guess, was it the nurse, was it the police officer, was it the doctor? The answer to your question is something that is going to be obvious to all of these abusers.
Well, I mean, you also, in many cases, have situations where the abused chooses not to press charges. I mean, that's certainly within their right too. But again, if you're talking about, human trafficking, for instance, a young woman, young boy, whatever, sustained some injuries from those who are trafficking him or her, and they go in, involving law enforcement at that point could very well mean the difference between staying trapped in that cycle of trafficking or being able to escape and get law enforcement involved. I mean, it's not like, particularly if you're being trafficked, they're not just going to let you, walk out, jump in the car and go wherever you want and drive to the police station. They keep very tight control of you. But if somehow law enforcement is involved, now you have an opportunity to get away. And that's really the point of mandated reporting, or at least part of it, is that you do get law enforcement involved so you can try to break the cycle, break the pattern, or get the person out of the, bondage that they're in. And it's not easy. I'm not suggesting this is some simple process, but we're talking about people's lives here, and we know what happens with women who are, with a partner, spouse, whatever the case may be, who is physically abusive. It escalates. It doesn't get better. It usually gets worse.
Senator Melissa Melendez, former member of the California Senate and president of the Golden State Policy Council. You can get her online at goldenstatepolicy.com and follow her on Twitter at Senator Melendez. Senator Melendez, thanks so much for stopping by.
Anytime, John. Thanks for having me.
If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to our interview with Barbara Stone for a second time, you can do that easily.
Yes, you absolutely can. Go to KBC.com, click on podcast, go to the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe, download all the episodes. You can go to The John Phillips Show on YouTube, search for that, add yourself to the playlist. So many ways to listen. You can listen all day long. You can listen in the shower. You can listen in your sleep. You can listen whenever you want.
Dear Lord.
Well, the main policy proposal that L.A. Mayor Karen Bass has made since being elected and has been enacting is Project Inside Safe. The theory is that if you take people living in encampments on the streets and you just put a roof over their head, then many of their problems will be worked out. Because of that, she's been going to many motels in the city to try to take the vacant rooms and to give them to homeless people so that they can sleep indoors. She's not the only one in the state of California promoting this idea. Randy, they're doing it in San Jose, too.
That's right. San Jose is one of many cities that during COVID bought motels to house the homeless. And that's what Karen Bass wants to do now because renting the motel rooms was too expensive. So she wants to buy the hotel rooms. And it turns out getting into the slumlord business is not good business.
Uh-oh.
And now the homeless are complaining that they're in very decrepit conditions and nobody's here to help them.
The encampments are better than the motels?
Some of these motels, yes.
If you're feeling down, if you're feeling blue, let's get help for you.
So let's find out what's happening in San Jose because it's going to happen very soon here in Los Angeles. Here is KPIX.
From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Evening Edition. Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Cook. Brian is off tonight.
Okay, I didn't know that Brian was off tonight.
I wonder what Brian's up to.
In San Jose, homeless hotel tenants are sounding the alarm of the deplorable living conditions. Our Devin Feely spoke to tenants who are losing hope the city will do anything to fix things.
Now, was the motel decrepit before the homeless moved in, or after, or both?
Well, the homeless do like to do meth and start fires, so they didn't help.
Homeless hotels was a pandemic-era policy. The idea was to get people housed as quickly as possible in the middle of a public health crisis. But the problem now is that many of those facilities have fallen into disrepair.
And guess who owns the property and is liable for them?
A couple of times people tried to break the windows or get in, and all I did was get out and start swinging something, and cussing at them.
Oh, boy.
That sounds like a motel you want to stay at.
This is the Yelp review of the homeless motel in San Jose.
A couple of times people tried to break the windows or get in, and all I did was get out and start swinging something, and cussing at them.
That is part of the hard part about accepting housing. If you were homeless, would you want to live next to these people?
They're homeless because of the high cost of housing. We hear this over and over and over again. It's strange to me that it seems like they bring antisocial behavior with them.
A couple of times people tried to break the windows or get in, and all I did was get out and start swinging something, and cussing at them.
Carol Fleming lived on the street for 20 years, much of that time in her car. And at first when she moved into...
How many of those years do you think it was meth?
It was 20 years total?
Yes.
21.
And at first when she moved into the Surestay Hotel in San Jose, she thought it was a godsend, until she started getting sick.
I got pneumonia, and I couldn't even pick myself up off the floor.
You live on the street, you get hepatitis. You go inside the motel, you get pneumonia.
How do you get pneumonia from a hotel room?
I don't want to know. Don't be licking those doorknobs.
Until she started getting sick.
I got pneumonia, and I couldn't even pick myself up off the floor. He had to come and get me and take me to the hospital.
Cheryl and other residents say the site has steadily fallen into disrepair, describing conditions as unsafe and unhealthy.
This place.
So you're saying that they're not good tenants?
What did the paying customers have to say about this motel prior to the homeless moving in?
I got to imagine there weren't that many paying customers if the owner decided to sell to the city.
Describing conditions as unsafe and unhealthy.
This place has got cockroaches, has got water leaking from the ceiling, has got mold.
Mark, who asked us only to use his first name, showed us the hole in his ceiling where rainwater seeps into his unit from a leaky roof.
And that's just a sunroof.
It is California.
You can see those starry nights, crystal clear.
And now we put tape around the electrical outlets, hoping to prevent cockroaches from getting inside.
Sounds like a place you want to stay in.
If you want to know what these motels look like, go to thereifixedit.com.
And now we put tape around the electrical outlets, hoping to prevent cockroaches from getting inside.
These conditions right here aren't worth living for, but it's better than the streets. You got a bed, a roof over your head.
Hey, he rhymed.
He could be the next mayor of L.A.
You got a bed, a roof over your head.
If you're feeling down, if you're feeling blue, let's get help for you.
You got a bed, a roof over your head.
The city of San Jose purchased the Surestay Hotel for $12 million in state money during the pandemic, but perhaps sensing the extent of the repairs the site needed, sold it to the county's housing authority for just $1 last year.
With the price of real estate in California, they sold a motel for $1 in San Jose.
They spent $12 million, realized what a financial liability owning and operating a slum is that you force drug addicts into. And what do you know? They realized we got to offload this property from our books any way possible because when the fire starts, we're the ones that are going to get sued.
And then if you live near this motel and you object to all of this chaos, then you're a NIMBY.
The county has yet to officially take over management of the site. San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan described the current conditions.
You know, that's a very, very, very good name for a mayor in a California city these days.
Mayhem?
San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan described the current conditions as, quote, appalling, writing in a prepared...
Someone should do something about this.
If only I knew and elected.
Writing in a prepared statement that we need to demand more accountability from our site operators.
Hey, there's your word.
This is the word of the day, I'm telling you. There is some guru, there is some strategist who has come up and poll tested the word accountability, and accountability sounds good, and it lets you do nothing, which is what you want to do.
We need to demand more accountability from our site operators so that we can continue to provide safe, dignified alternatives to our streets and creeks. Cheryl says she has heard the promises before but has seen little progress in their wake. She says it's hard to believe that this time will be any different.
No respect, no dignity from them.
How dare they give me a free place to live?
What do you want, lady?
Many of the residents that we spoke to today say they feel stuck. They don't want to go back out onto the street, even though they say their living conditions currently are only modestly better.
Notice how none of them have the idea of maybe I should try to make something of myself and get my own place.
No, that's just not even an option.
The county is expected to take over management of the facility by the end of the year. Residents say they're very concerned that conditions will be allowed to further deteriorate before the takeover.
Maybe if the cockroaches get big enough, one of them will think, maybe I should get off drugs so I can actually afford a place to live on my own.
Well, at a certain point, there's going to be so much meth in this motel, the cockroaches are going to be scared away. That stuff will kill you. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Margaret writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. She's so excited about who's going to be throwing the first pitch at Sunday's Dodger game. She entered into the raffle at her work to make sure she can get some tickets. But she also texted her daughter to tell her about the game, and she sent us a screenshot. Here's how it goes. Guess who's throwing out the first pitch on Sunday? Who? The fake doctor. Ew.